Hello there. Back in 2000, our ministry, which was called Apologia, or more accurately in Greek anyway, Apologia, we published this journal for about 2 or 3 years, just before Max was born. This one is from winter 2000, so just before 9/11, at the turning of the millennium, when there was a lot of prophetic speculation around. One of the early discoveries we made when we left the Watchtower organization in 1987-88 was that there was a scary parallel in the world of evangelicalism. The dominant eschatology, or doctrine of the last things, was dispensationalism. Certainly on the airwaves, you heard virtually nothing else except dispensationalism. And of course, one of the key teachings of dispensationalism is that the saints, that is the church, will not be on earth during the Great Tribulation, and will not therefore see the depredations of the Antichrist, or experience them, of course. Now, that seemed to us to be a scarier version of what we kind of knew from our Watchtower eschatology, namely that when Armageddon comes, it will be the deliverance. When the Great Tribulation and Armageddon come, that will be the deliverance of Jehovah's Witnesses, not their martyrdom. Well, the evangelical version of that is that the church will not be martyred because the church won't be here during the tribulation. So we wanted to speak to that. That was not the eschatology of the early church. It's not been the eschatology of the church throughout the ages. It was assumed, at least in the early church, that the church would go through the Great Tribulation. They prepared, even the book of Revelation bears witness to that, they were preparing for that eventuality, that we should follow the Lamb wherever he led us. And the Lamb, of course, had been martyred himself. So in this particular journal, I got to write from the editor's section, and then the article that immediately followed that, which I'll record in, I guess, 3 parts, a prophetic warning from church history. The from the editor's section begins this way. When the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith, or literally the faith, on the earth? That's Luke 18, verse 8. Surely in these days of rampant prophetic speculation, when millions of Christians are being led to expect a harvest of yet more millions into ever-expanding evangelical churches worldwide, the above sobering words of Christ need to be heard more frequently. Shall he find the faith? But haven't mostly premillennial prophetic teachers and anointed charismatic leaders told us that a great harvest is now being gathered in anticipation of the Lord's imminent arrival? Haven't generations of Christians been led to expect by non-premillennial teachers that conversion of the majority of mankind to Christ before the second coming? One of the greatest surprises I experienced reading the Bible for the first time without Watchtower glasses was the overturning of my expectation about the growth of the true religion before the second advent. For I, like millions of evangelicals, had been taught that the faith would enjoy exponential growth just before that event. Luke 18:8 didn't fit into my last day scenario. A much more familiar text for Jehovah's Witnesses that we saw ourselves fulfilling was Matthew 24:14. The good news of the kingdom will be preached in all the world for a witness, and then the end will come. Naturally, we assumed a great growth would accompany that preaching. Since JWs were, and still are, experiencing such growth, this is back in 2000, as I said, we assumed Jesus predicted that too. But did he? It was only in my last phase of following the Watchtower that I came to see that the only growth or revival predicted in our pet chapter was the harvest of false prophets. For false prophets will arise and mislead many. Matthew 24:11. The same chapter seemed to predict as well a great falling away among believers. The love of the most shall grow cold, but he that endures to the end, he shall be saved. Verses 12 and 13. Could it really be that not only cultists are going to experience mammoth disappointment in the near future? Here J.C. Ryle on Luke 18:8. Ryle said, "The question before us is a very humbling one. It shows the uselessness of expecting that all the world will be converted before Christ comes again. How many around us really believe what the Bible contains? How many live as if they believe that Christ died for them and that there is a judgment, a heaven, and a hell? Our Lord teaches that there will be comparatively few true believers upon earth when he comes again. That's from Ryle's Expository Thoughts on the Gospels, Luke Volume 2. If Ryle is right, many professing Christians are going to hear those devastating words, "I never knew you." For the good of such professors of Christianity, whom we would not want to be eternally lost, and for the peace of our own spirits, we ought to seek after the vigilance of that widow in Luke 18, whose faith inspired the above question from Christ, that widow whose faith would not let her judge rest. The following pages, it is hoped, will be a bracing cold shower for those afflicted with millennial fever and its attendant spiritual symptoms. Then the article proper begins, a prophetic warning from church history. We evangelicals wag the finger at the cults as false prophets with alarming glibness. A little more acquaintance with church history and the accusation might stick in our throats, which is all to the good if our efforts to disentangle those in the grip of false teachers are accompanied by a more becoming modesty and less Pharisaic superiority. Even in the New Testament, there is evidence rather that believers, true believers, were carried away with false expectations, which even true hope can generate. Well known, of course, are the pre-Pentecostal pleas of the apostles. Teacher, when shall these things be? Luke 21:7. And Lord, is it at this time? Acts 1:6. The apostles, we recall, got no direct response from the Lord. They were satisfied with their commission. You will be my witnesses. Their message was not prophecy, but a person. The centrality of the person of Christ did not prevent some of the early believers from falling into unhealthy speculation about the second coming. Paul had to correct some in Thessalonica who had early in their faith been misled into thinking the coming of the Lord was already upon them. That's according to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 1 to 12. We can easily understand, therefore, that after the last apostle died, unbalanced views and unbiblical emphases might well be expected to appear, and so it was. We cannot leave the New Testament era, however, without a word on the book of Revelation. To this day, the Apocalypse, to use its Greek title, continues to be used more as a roadmap to the future, rather than as a book that, more clearly than any other in the Bible, serves to reveal the present and future glory of Jesus Christ. Let us never forget the book's full title, The Revelation of Jesus Christ, Revelation 1:1. It seems one of the immediate uses of the book at the end of the first century, as persecution flared up against the Christian communities, was to shore up the faith of those churches who bore the fire of the Roman Empire's intense hostility. Therefore, throughout the Revelation, we see the future glory of the saints contrasted with their present persecution, and the fleeting glory of the present Antichrist, that is, Rome and its emperor, contrasted with the eternal glory of the Lamb. Even the providential choice of that title of Christ, Lamb, used 28 times in the book, more than any other titles of Jesus, serves to remind us of Revelation's immediate purpose, to encourage and inspire Christians facing intense persecution, even martyrdom, and to remind them of Christ's lamb-like response to the hatred exhibited by his Jewish and Roman persecutors. That's based on, of course, the reference to him being led like a lamb to the slaughter in Isaiah 53, verse 7, and Mark 15. In view of these plain purposes of the book, that is Revelation, to help Christians endure in the face of tribulation, and to exalt Christ in contrast to the Roman God incarnate, Caesar, it is ironic and potentially tragic to watch millions of believers in North America and elsewhere busy themselves with the prognostications of prophetic teachers, all of whom ignore the first century background of the book, and continue to blithely assure Christians that they will not have to worry about the Great Tribulation. So that's more or less the intro to the article. And next time we'll deal with prophetic warnings from church history, specifically in the early church, prophetic speculation in the early church, and prophetic speculation in the Middle Ages. I'll put in a link to a video we did on the Great Tribulation and the parallel between the Watchtower's view and dispensationalism's view. Follow the Lamb wherever he goes. Are we prepared for martyrdom? See you next time.